Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. It's clear that our ability to keep our torso upright while squatting to parallel can depend on the length ratio of our torso upper legs and lower legs. What advice can you give for the people who have long thighs or short lower legs who struggle to keep their torso upright while squatting to parallel? I don't know that your lower legs count that much. Okay, here's what I'm going to say on that, and this is where people mess up and they get it wrong. The standard solution is always, well, just low bar squat, right? And then have almost a vertical torso near the bottom and basically good morning it up. And I'm not saying that that's completely wrong, but there is another option here. Work on your mobility. Learn to sumo deadlift, learn to box squat. Why? Because then you'll be able to do wide stance squats. If you think about it, the biggest problem you have with the long femurs cause what problem? That to keep the bar mid-foot, which is proper center of gravity, when you're getting near the bottom, you have to lean forward a lot more. Okay, you have to lean forward more. Well, what happens if you take a wider stance? It puts your feet further back relative to your torso. Think of a triangle, right? Think of a triangle. What happens when you spread the two arms out wider? Right? When you go to a wider stance, it brings that whole segment further back. It will let you stay more upright. Learn to squat wider. Now, that's not only good advice sometimes for the longer femured person, but it's general good advice for everyone because we all have femurs, right? Every one of us have femurs longer than 4 inches. Right? We don't have just little 1 inch, 2 inch, 4 inch femurs. We all have femurs. They vary a little bit from person to person, few inches. We could all take that advice if we want to stay more upright. That's your key to staying upright. You should learn to squat with a wider stance. And people will say, well, that's powerlifting squatting. That's not true Olympic squatting. Okay, fine, but you move more weight because you can keep your torso more upright. Yes, because you're doing that, it's going to use more glute and more hamstring and more hip, and it's harder on your hips. It's absolutely harder on your hips. But you can train in a manner that makes it easier on your hips. Okay? Because if you just did nothing but free squat, normal back squats, and you did only the very wide stance like that, it can be tough on your hips. It's easier on your back. For a lot of people, it lets you lift a lot more weight too, because you're changing the moment arms around, and we're getting more muscles involved while staying more upright. But you can train in a way that's easier on your hips in general. This is where messing with other training modalities helps. This is where learning to use supplemental lifts helps. So you could use supplemental lifts for a lot of your general hypertrophy of your squat muscles and take a much wider stance that lets you be much easier on your back, lets you be stronger, lift a heavier weight that might be a little tougher on your hips, and you can still train it that way, and that would probably be the best solution for the long femur squatter. All right, that would be your best solution if you want to stay more upright. If your goal is to be as upright as possible, that's how you do it. And that would actually apply to everybody, not just the person with the longer femurs, but it will let you largely negate your leverage and genetic disadvantage. All right, next question. The gym I attend can be very busy at times. In the Novice 2.0, the exercises are in the most optimal order possible, I'm assuming. However, like I said, my gym can be busy and it's a bit of a problem leaving the squat rack after doing squats to have to try to return after I complete the bench press and deadlifts or rows. The wait can be up to 15 minutes to get to the rack, back to perform the shoulder press. Is it okay to change the order slightly? At first I was lifting the bar into position for the shoulder press, but now the weight is higher, it's more difficult. Thanks in advance. P.S. My bench press is my weakest lift, so I'm guessing that may make a difference. That makes a difference. Benching after is going to be a problem. What do you mean it's hard to lift the bar off the floor? If you can overhead press a weight for 5 full range of motion reps, you can clean that off the floor. Okay, you can clean that off the floor. All right? That's totally reasonable. And in fact, I'm going to say that's the solution to your problem. If you're telling me that you can't get a rack in a reasonable time and you want to run the program, then clean the weight off the floor. Practice your cleaning a little bit. Right? Practice learning how to clean the weight up. Watch a couple tutorials on the clean. You don't need to learn how to clean correctly. Do you know why? Because there's not a human being on earth that needs proper power clean technique to do their 5 rep max on the overhead press. Okay? Don't exist. Learn to clean. Learn how to just muscle clean it up. But you need to learn how to muscle clean it up, not just try to curl it. So, learn how to clean. There's your solution. Because you know what? It sounds like the sort of gym you're training in and running the program, you're going to reoccurringly run into this problem. Practice cleaning a little bit. Learn to clean the weight up. You can do it that way. This will resolve your issue and it will let you do this. And here's what I'd say in general. You got to learn to adapt around the environment you choose to train in. Okay? You need to learn to adapt around that environment. Now, me personally, my adaptation to my environment is if I need a new piece of equipment, I buy it. Not an option for most people. Let's be realistic here. Pretty large percentage of people out there listening to fitness don't have that sort of budget. And that's fine. You don't have to. You have to learn to adapt. And in the case of that, cleaning the weight up into position. All right, you just adapt. You deal with it. You find ways around it. And now that you asked the question, I'll point that out. It's not that hard to learn how to clean your overhead press weight. And I'm talking about your 1 rep max overhead press weight. 5 rep max, it shouldn't take you much practice. That's your solution. That's your fix. Adapt, overcome, get strong. Right? This is what it is. All right, next question. Hey, Jason, is there any reason to train calves at all from a performance standpoint? I'm going to say there's no reason to train calves at all for any reason. But many coaches say big calves are detrimental to speed-oriented sports because they increase contact time with the floor. Some of them even use calf size as a metric to determine whether someone will be a good athlete or not. There's a notion that calves with higher insertion points have less growth potential and can produce more acceleration due to the shoulder moment arm or the Achilles tendon. Is that right? Not really. No. They say calves really are not that big of a deal. Okay, so let's talk about this from a performance perspective instead of a competitive bodybuilding perspective. Your calves are going to grow as a result of your training. Okay, that is going to happen. Now, I'm not going to get into ethnic breakdowns of calves. We don't need to go into all that in the subgroups, but that there's enormous biases in different directions on that. And even inside of the same continent, whether you come from the eastern or western half of that continent. So, there's an enormous genetic component to calves. They're probably the single most genetic muscle in your entire body as far as your skeletal muscles go. Okay, they're going to grow from all of your training if you train correctly anyways. They're probably going to reach near your limits. And here's what I mean. I don't just mean squatting. The squat actually, if you look at EMG data, the squat hits the calf just as hard as the calf raise does. Okay? That is verifiable with data. That's not speculation. What else hits our quads super hard besides deadlifts? How about all of our jumping work, our plyometric work, our weighted carries? All right. So if you're a serious lifter, I don't mean a bodybuilder, because bodybuilders are not serious lifters. If you're a serious lifter, you're probably going to squat. You're probably going to deadlift. You're probably going to do weighted plyometrics. Right? Do weighted plyometrics, jumping, and you're probably going to do loaded carries. That is an enormous amount of training load for your calves. Now, people will say, well, calves respond. They're endurance muscles. They need even more endurance. If calves needed more endurance work to grow, then runners would have 25-inch calves. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. The only thing that makes your calves grow is intensity, because they're used to the volume. It's impossible to throw enough low intensity volume at your calves to get them to grow. The bodybuilders who do that and claim their calves blew up are sight shooting their calves, or they got implants. Arnold got implants, by the way. Or they're sight shooting them and then they're claiming that that's what they did to make them grow. Well, they're probably getting a good pump, and then once it's expanded, they sight enhance it and they get some growth. I mean, go watch, what's his name? You See the Freak. It's Big Dave. He injected them right on camera and explained that everybody does in bodybuilding. They all inject their calves. So That's what they do. So from a training perspective, your calf training is covered by all your other work. Think about all the modalities and performance elements you're training your calves for with all this other work. They're getting hit a lot. If your calves don't reach close to their genetic potential from all of that training, it's probably not going to get there. And that's going to tell you what your calf genetics are like anyways. Because all that training, I mean, you get your squat up to 500 pounds, and then you keep doing jump work, weighted carries, things like that, your calves are going to get probably about as big as you can expect, reasonably expect. And that's just what your calf genetics are. They are what they are. So spending a lot of time on direct calf work, what's our downside there? They're fatigued all the time. And if your calves are sore and fatigued from excessive amounts of pump work, that's going to affect your ability to jump. It's going to affect your power. It's going to affect your sprinting negatively. So that's more of what I think coaches are worried about. They don't want you doing a bunch of direct calf work. Our calves get so heavily worked in all of our jumping exercises and weighted carries and squats and sprints that we can't afford for them to be fatigued all the time on top of it. So again, if you're not going to compete in bodybuilding, it's really not worth worrying about. And if you are going to compete in bodybuilding and you don't have great calf genetics, you're going to have to learn the proper way to side enhance them. You're going to have to pin them. Okay, that's reality. You're going to go compete in that crazy, goofy endeavor. But I recommend that you don't compete in it at all, so you never have to do that. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.